Hey, it's Tess, content creator, model, presenter, and host of the Tess Talks podcast, on a mission to ignite curiosity. Welcome to episode 2 of the Tess Talks podcast. I am so excited for today's episode. I'm sitting down with my fiancé, Shaun Wilson, who is also the co-founder and CEO of Bondi Sands. And we're going to be diving into the incredible 10-year journey of Bondi, transforming from a startup into one of Australia's biggest beauty brands. Get ready for an inside look at what it takes to build a successful multinational brand. This episode isn't just about rapid growth and success, but it's packed with actionable business advice for every entrepreneur and business enthusiast. We're covering it all, from pitching to major retailers, navigating partnerships, scaling quickly while dodging common pitfalls, and becoming a transformational leader. If you're eager to learn about the business world, have a growth mindset, or simply just love Bondi Sands products, I mean, who doesn't? Then this is the episode for you. Brace yourself. This episode is a little longer, but I promise you it's worth every minute. Let's get curious. So obviously I've heard this story so many times, and I'm so excited to hear it again and go through it with you, because every time I hear it, I learn something new or find something new to be inspired by, or I'm like just left in pure admiration for what you've actually done. I probably don't give you enough credit, I don't think. Maybe because every day you come home from work and there's garbage to be taken out, housework to be done. But it is truly an amazing story. So I'm so excited to walk through it with you again, and especially since the recent sale. I think it's such a nice time to reflect on everything that you've been through and that we've been through.
Thanks for the kind words, Tessie. That's also a privilege and honour to be inaugural guest on Tess Talk. So very excited to chat with you.
You're
and
my
connect
number
with you
one
today.
guest.
I know.
How exciting. Couldn't be anyone more credible or inspiring to have on.
Thank you.
So obviously the podcast is all about igniting curiosity.
Yeah.
So my first question for you is, what was it about your childhood that you think stemmed this sense of curiosity in you to follow a path of business, but with like such determination and ambition?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it has to go back to childhood. And my parents, at a very young age, my dad, as you know, was a VFL footballer. Very famous in his day, always known for hard work and courage. He was the first professional footballer with Lee Matthews back in the 80s. And like everyone back then, they had two jobs. You had your sport, but generally wouldn't pay the way. But Dad did become a professional football player in the early 80s. And when he retired, I was 3 years old. And Dad and Mum, I think the next chapter for them was a new lifestyle, a lifestyle that integrated business, hopefully, but more importantly for them was family. So Dad took a massive change in terms of his career. He wanted to become a farmer, would you believe it? So we moved down to a place.
Such a different career change.
So from MCG to poultry farming is a massive change. And we moved from Greensborough, my sister and I, and my sister was a couple of years older, and moved to a place called Murray-Darra, which is about an hour south of Melbourne, near Mornington. And
so we're learning Shaun's a country boy, which I think surprises a lot of people.
We'll get to that in a second. But so through that time as a child, you do remember things. And I remember both my mum and dad, their huge work ethic, working on a farm. Both Dad and Mum got up at 4 a.m. Consistently to look at the chickens. Now, poultry farming is different to egg farming. Poultry farming, they grew for Ingham's chickens, which is one of the biggest growers in Australia. And they had a number of different farms. And they had about 1 million chickens at one time. Wow. So it was a big responsibility to look after those chickens and then sell them back to Ingham's, and obviously produced for a number of different retailers or wholesalers across the country. But I always remember them getting up super early. Always remember that. And they used to come back and get myself, Lee, and myself ready for school. But I always remember and admired their work ethic and commitment and consistency as well, and dedication towards that. And
were they dragging Shawnee out to the chickens to
and
pick
they
up some
tried
chicken
to.
shit?
They tried to. Like Dad wanted my sister and I. My sister used to love horse riding, so we had horses as well, and not just chickens. We ended up having cows and a smaller dairy farm, but also sheep and a number of different animals. But there's always a running joke in my family that I was actually scared of the animals, and in particular, cows. And everyone still reminds me that when we used to move the cows from one paddock to another, and my responsibility was to mind the gate, I used to just run away when they used to approach me. So I was never a farmer, and I was always reminded as I grew up there was a city slicker at the heart.
So different skills that you gained from that part of your life than dealing with animals,
definitely.
for sure.
I remember throughout this farming journey, my parents, Dad and Mum purchased other farms, and they replicated the model. So they had a poultry farm with management, and they replicated it in other areas of Victoria, including Cooroorup and Lapatouche. And I remember the time Dad told me about scaling a business, and how do you scale a business consistently, but replicate a certain business model. I was fascinated by that. I remember even in early high school, I was really fascinated by that, about how businesses actually scale when they've got a product or a service, and how they do that on a larger format. So I was really interested in that side of farming. That's the only side. But I think throughout that time, that really caught my interest in terms of business, is when you've got a really good, strong product or service, your ability to scale that and replicate that and be consistent with that framework. And I think that was a really early memory. And once you do that really well, it's about building a team. And I think Dad and Mum did that quite effectively across their farms. But how do you manage that then and continue to grow that? So I think I learned a fair bit throughout that time. And also in my childhood, I was a very average student, maybe a little bit above average, but I always worked very hard. And I was one of those students that had to study probably harder than anyone else.
A little bit of a nerd.
Well, I had to put the extra yards in, and I wasn't
Paid off.
wasn't born with the intelligence of some of my peers, but I knew I had to work a little bit harder. So I always remember Dad telling me, and Mum, I think, in VCE, and they asked me about my study routine. I said, look, I study a bit at school, and I get back from home, I'm doing a couple of hours then. They said, well, why don't you get up at 5 a.m. and study before school? And I thought, I never actually even thought about doing that. And I did do that for a period of time over that VCE, and I think it really helped with me in terms of my grades. And I think it was just an example of work ethic. And sometimes you got to put the extra miles in to really be successful in anything you do. And I had to, in terms of getting the grades I required to enter university. So I think my childhood was around that, but also being pushed by my parents and my sister. We were always supporting their passions we wanted to do. So that was really important for us, and that was the sports we played, the social things we did together as a family and friendship group, and also lovely memories I had in the farm. Like, I remember when I went to Peninsula, which is a private boys' school, and I was invited around to my friends' houses. All they wanted to do was not swim in their own swimming pool. They wanted to come to our farm and swim in the dam. That's what they wanted. So I had some great memories of that. It was a childhood of great support. Really admired their work ethic, but also they supported that for us as well as children.
It is so fascinating to me how so much of our childhood imprints on us and really forms the person that we become and our interests, and also looking at the way that your parents raised you and the way that they pushed you in certain ways or encouraged you to do certain things, and that's clearly had a massive impact on you. It's just fascinating to see how those things build us up and create the character that we are. And I think it's really interesting to know how much of these skills and these traits are innate within us and how much are taught or learnt later on. And I think what's really interesting with your story is looking at some of your first jobs and what you did during high school and coming out of high school, and how that's actually really shaped you as a person and some of your skills that you still carry through today.
Definitely. I was a Macca's boy. That was my first job, and I realised very quickly that in some parts of even McDonald's I wasn't good at. So how can I actually become more of a manager and actually manage and lead certain people quite quickly? And they put me on the fry station. I was terrible at the fry station. I was hot and sweaty.
Shaun is so
there was pressure. And I never coped well. But eventually I got noticed a little bit throughout McDonald's of being a pretty good crew trainer and managing the back end of the business. And I really enjoyed that. And I think McDonald's and hospitality in particular, in those fast-paced environments, teaches about collaboration, dealing with conflict, dealing with a fast-paced environment, dealing with challenges as well. And I think it's really great training. And I always really encourage people in their teen years to get that first job in that fast-paced environment, because you can learn a lot from people, and that's a really important part of forming your person you are in your career as well.
Totally. And you progressed as a manager there really quite quickly, didn't you?
I did, yeah. As I said, I think I realised, and all throughout my career, I love working with people at a, now McDonald's wouldn't say strategic level, but a decision-making level. I love that from a McDonald's point of view in terms of the back end of the business, working with the owner of the company. I really enjoyed that, but also training people when they started as well. So yeah, I think I found my skill set and passion quite quickly. Definitely managing and leading teams, definitely setting targets within a business, achieving targets, celebrating wins. I found that was my passion quite quickly. And I was looking for that coming out of school and into university, into my first steps in career in corporate. But that was definitely my passion in early years.
So when you finished school, were you really aware of what you wanted to do at uni and your next path in life? Were you really self-assured in that regard?
Absolutely not. I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. But what I did know, I loved sport. I loved physical activity. I was really fascinated by the human body. I did love commerce and business. So I was trying to find a degree that hopefully tapped into those fields. So I did a sports science management course at Deakin University, which I really enjoyed. I think coming back to school, to uni, I probably blossomed a lot more in postgrad or university, where school, I thought I did okay, but I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I did at university. I think university gave me a bit more freedom. I enjoyed the studies I was doing and gave me the independence to learn a different way. But it's still, even through university, I was trying to find my passion, what I was going to do as a career. And I think there's a lot of pressure on kids these days to find that quickly. And for me, I didn't really find it till later years what I really wanted to do. But ultimately, in those early years, I just knew that I had a passion in physical activity, commerce and sport, but how could I put that in a career? I had no idea what that looked like. So
I think that's so important to highlight too, because I know especially a lot of my friends in my age group and stuff put so much pressure on themselves, and a lot of us put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have everything kind of figured out in our 20s, and it's just not the reality of it. And I think, I have a lot of people that look at you and they're like, wow, like Shaun has achieved so much, but what they don't realize is that it's such a journey to get there, and these things don't come overnight. And, you're now in your 40s, which is early 40s, I'll add.
Early 40s.
But this is when things have come to fruition for you. And I think it's just really important to set that message straight that you don't know everything early on. You have to try different things, and you have to dabble in different studies or different work experiences to find your actual path.
Absolutely. And I talk a lot about this in Bondi now, but I look back in studies, I talk about inputs to outputs a lot. And I really do see school and university as an input. So that's really saying, okay, what are the things or behaviours you need to finish something? And that's what we look at. I think finishing a university degree is about discipline, about being consistent with something, doing something you might not particularly like. But that's really important to do because really you're going to face those things in a professional environment. So the outputs are things like your enter score or these scores, but you know what? That doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. As long as your inputs are really clear and you really set those behaviours right, I think that's really important. So we talk a lot about it at Bondi as well. Not necessarily the outputs in terms of revenue, sales, profitability. What are the inputs to get there? What are the behaviours we need as a team? What do we need to focus in terms of customer centricity to really get there? So I think that's really important as well in the early years. Like focus on the inputs, don't necessarily focus on the result just yet, and that's really important.
So interesting. And I think for you, like obviously you always naturally had a little bit of this entrepreneurial leader, founder traits within you, but you went straight into corporate after university, and you didn't necessarily dabble in a lot of startups and things like that as a lot of entrepreneurs do. The common kind of journey, even myself being interested in business and starting a million different businesses in my 20s, which I always laugh at all my different passion projects and stuff.
I love that though, love that.
So how did you find yourself falling into corporate and seeing the next phase of your 20s kind of go?
I think like anything, I think you finish studies and you're looking to get something within a career, ideally earning some money, taking that next step. And for me, it was finding the right company at the right time. And I was lucky and fortunate enough to get a job at a sports management company. I was exposed to different levels of management, marketing, finance for a couple of years. I went to a big company called RACV, which is a big insurance, but diversified into resorts, lifestyle, golf courses, gyms, product development. And I got my first job really in the lifestyle area of the business. And I think you're going to be quite lucky. I do believe in luck in terms of who you're actually around at that time. And I think I benefited as an entrepreneur with Bondi just based on the corporate experience I had. And I was around, yes, in a corporate environment, but with a lot of leaders that were entrepreneurial. And I was very fortunate to have them as leaders. And a lot of my mentors at that time, Rebecca Arcuri, Caroline King, we're very staff and customer centric. Always had a growth mindset, led with optimism. These were all qualities that I learned in a big organisation. I think the benefit for me moving from a corporate to a startup and entrepreneurial journey was bringing some of that to a startup company, which I think was really important for our success quickly, and it really helped us build the right model and culture within the organisation as well. But I was very fortunate to be around some really good leaders in my 20s. And looking back at my childhood, I sort of look at mum and dad, and I think I got the best of both worlds, I believe. And mum is very intuitive, a very social person, as you know, sense of perspicacity. She understands people very well. Dad is quite black and white, but extremely financial, great business acumen, great negotiator, understands scaling, all these qualities that I think is a partnership you need. And I love to think that early in my career, I just love being around people. And I was very curious in learning. I was very curious working with people, experiencing different departments, whether it's HR, marketing, finance. I loved it all. And I threw myself into it. I remember the first day, or maybe the second day, at RACV. I was in the lift, and I didn't know at the time, but the gentleman next to me was Colin Jordan. Colin Jordan was the CEO of RACV. Now, Colin Jordan was known to be, I've got to use the right words here, probably an old school CEO, probably a bit more autocratic, a bit more top down, and a fascinating man, photographic memory, extremely smart. He ran an insurance company. RACV, yes, it had this lifestyle division, owned 8 resorts around Australia, golf courses, gyms, product development, had shops, but it was really an insurance company with roadside membership as well. But it had to be run like that with corporate governance. And I remember him, and he's quite intimidating, but I didn't know who he was. And he asked me, I said, it's your first day? I thought he was just an executive. And he said, it's your first day today? I said, it's actually my first week. And so, what are you hoping to be one day? And I said, I want to be the CEO. And he's gone, I said, what my job? I've gone, your job. And I just, I had that sort of belief that.
I mean, he would have loved hearing that, let's just say.
I had that belief that I wanted to eventually learn from people and become a manager or a lead within a company. And I was hoping to surround myself with people that could help me with that. And I was very fortunate, as I mentioned to you, to have some great mentors in my 20s and all really strong female leaders. I've been around strong female leaders my whole life. Now I've got a female workforce of 92%. I've probably got a female brand as well, but I've always had a strong female support around me my whole career.
And now an amazing
and also
female fiancé.
Absolutely, yes. And I keep learning from you every single day. Every single day.
And a little baby girl on the way. It's girls everywhere in your life.
Of course.
Okay, so at what point in your corporate career did you start thinking, all right, now is the time for me to kind of take the leap into doing something for myself? I know that everyone, entrepreneurial, is always looking for that one magic idea that's going to be the one that they follow suit and they commit everything to, and it's going to make it for them. When did this point happen for you, and how did Bondi come about and you decide that this is the path that I'm going to follow?
I think I always had this intuition that it was always me. I think, though, I found like I might have had a bit of a skill set with it in corporate. I was always thrown business development, brand development projects, whether it was launching new resorts, re-looking at day spas, gyms across the country, finding different business models, launching RSV golf membership was a really exciting initiative, doing that from scratch. So I always thought building things was me. I love building products. In particular products. I think I was really fascinated by that. And then in parallel to that, I was also studying my master's in business. And over that time, I really started to love business, customer development, business development, adding value, innovation, and reading up a lot about it through my studies, through just general reading, fascinated by brands, the way they went about it. And just had this passion throughout my 20s in corporate, but also through studies now at a personal level. And I think by then I thought it would be great to develop something. And at that time, timing is one of those things. And I moved from Docklands to Port Melbourne. And over those years, I developed a lot of friendships. And one of those friendships was my business partner in Blair James, and I visited his salon a lot in Port Melbourne, and we struck a friendship. And
what type of salon was it?
It was a tanning salon. Okay. It was a tanning salon. I'll get to that in a second. Definitely a tanning salon. And I at the time, just for your listeners, I did enjoy a few solariums, but we'll get to that in a second as well. But also I enjoyed spray tan. I had a spray tan once in a while. And
that's pretty rare. I actually didn't know that about you.
I did.
I don't think you ever admitted that to me.
Yeah, I did. And Blair and I spoke about brands a lot. So every time I was in Port Melbourne, we'd go next door, have lunch and talk about different brands and products. And I was studying at the time, and Blair mentioned to me regarding self-tanning. And I said, look, I'm doing this project on consumables at uni. It'd be great if I look at self-tanning as a category. And I did, and the category I thought needed to be disrupted. And Blair thought that as well. I think from a global point of view, there was probably one self-tan brand in the world in Saint-Tropez. We believe that the price positioning wasn't going to approach everyone with that price positioning, very high, Saint-Tropez. We believe quality wasn't there in do-it-yourself products. And I think the most important thing we were looking at, and I think my project also looked at, was the marketing model around brands. And we believed that the storytelling of Australia was not there with either the sun or tanning or SPF. And we thought if we could do that very well, we could develop a brand. So like anything, and you could have a strategic focus, a priority. Our priority was, how do we develop an amazing self-tan line with high quality, approachable price point, accessible, and telling the Australian lifestyle story. And once we looked at that, I think we got very excited, and then we started the journey of developing a brand.
Okay, wow. So what did those super, super early days look like? Because I think there's all these little things, which are big things at the time. I'm curious to know how much energy you spent on these little things, which long-term become big things. So, I mean, were you investing in marketing agencies? How did you come up with the name? What did contracts look like in the early days? What about like equity division? All these things that I think founders can get really, really caught up on early days. And it's hard to kind of find that balance and how much energy and resources are we pouring into these things, or are we just like getting to it and going?
Really good question. I think what I've learnt and what I see a lot in terms of startups and founders is really allocating your time and capital to the right areas. And I think founders make big mistakes in that area. I think people get caught up on brand a lot, which I'm not saying is wrong. I just think you'd be very mindful that a brand is encompassed by so many things, not just the way it looks and feels, but the way you sell it, your sales funnels, the way you market it, the way you look at growth, your financial ability to support it, your operational delivery, supply chain. So a brand is encompassing. And I think your decision-making around your time and capital is crucial in the early stages, because you know what? You're going to have issues. There's going to be many barriers, and your perseverance through that is going to be critical. But looking at Bondi, I think Blair and I were really good partners from the start, because we had one thing. I always say about business partners, what's critical? The number one thing going into business with a partner is that your vision is the same. And it has to be the same. Now, the way you get there could be disagreements. And I think that's strong. I think that's healthy. You need healthy conflict. And I think that's really important. But your vision must be the same. And Blair and I's vision from day one has always been the same. And we've also, what I believe is really important when you go into business at a founder level, have business partners, or you get outside support, whether it's through PE or anyone in terms of external stakeholders, it's got to be making sure they complement your business in the right way. And Blair and I quickly found what we were strong at, what we were going to lead and own, how we want to report back to each other. And in those early stages, we defined that quite clearly. And like anything, I do believe speed is critical. I'm not a massive believer of just waiting. I think once you've got an idea and a concept and a value proposition, your ability to move quickly is just as important. So we did move quickly. We engaged a manufacturer. We worked closely with R&D and chemists. We believe we produced 3 high-quality products. I look at the branding now, I look at it and cringe. The branding was terrible.
That's pretty standard for any business launching.
And that's the thing. I think you look back at it, and I remember even coming up with the name. And the name wasn't actually developed by Blair and I. It was another person who was part of the business at the time, and his name was Michael Dyson, who was a friend of ours and still a very close friend. I remember when we were driving back from a photo shoot. So picture this, we're launching some products. We're going to spend, I think, $100,000 in inventory. We've got a bit of a design, what it's going to look like. We haven't even got a business name or a brand name. So that's how quick we're moving. And I remember we liked the word Bondi. We always thought that was important. What we didn't know was that second word around it. And I remember coming back from the photo shoot, and Michael Dyson said, "Oh, how about Bondi Sands?" And I remember when he first said that, I said, "Oh, I don't really think I really like that." But it ended up growing on Blair and I very quickly. And I think we look back on it as a really good move, because we're looking at Bondi Body and a few other things, and it just probably wasn't broad enough. And I think a brand name that was broad is really important as well. So how can I add different categories to it over time? So Bondi Sands was a name Michael actually developed, and unfortunately for us three, Michael decided not to be part of Bondi quite early on, just based on the commitment Either it was financial or also time. So Blair and I then took the strides, and then I had an opportunity to bring another person on. And I believe that time the best person to bring on from a small minority was to keep it tight. So I said to my mum and dad, would you be interested in a seed investment? Minority stake, and they were thrilled to be a part of it and invest a very small amount. But I said to Dad even a few weeks ago, it was the best investment he'll ever do ever in the history of anything. But it's been incredible to have them part of the journey for the last 10 years. But it was good. There was just the three of us or four of us with Mum, and we were also on the board as well. And Dad had a different perspective on things, and we'll talk about that later on. But ultimately, it was good to keep it quite tight. But I do believe that when you're with business partners, it's very important that you're aligned in your vision. And ideally, you don't have to define your vision from day one, but you got to update it. So what do you want to be as a brand? Are you going to take a level of risk? Do you want to expand beyond Australia? Do you want to employ a lot of staff? Do you want to be lean? Do you want to outsource certain things, insource? So you've got to be clear on that stuff. And I think Blair and I really enjoyed a strong relationship in that area. And as I said, having a healthy conflict on certain things is also just as important. You want differences of opinion.
Especially early on, just
Definitely.
so you can nut out that you two actually can agree and disagree on these things in the right way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's critical.
And so I wanted to ask you, what did investment and the funding look like for you in early days? Because obviously you did launch with quite a big launch strategy, and you launched straight into pharmacy. And that can be quite hard for a lot of the founders to actually set that up, but also to find the resources and the finances to do that. So how did that work for you guys?
I always tell this part of the story of Bondi. I'm so glad that I wasn't in the beauty industry. I'm so glad. So if I knew how tough it was and how expensive the beauty industry is, I wouldn't have done it.
This is what I said in my first episode. Ignorance is a bliss.
It's a bliss.
Because I wonder if you would have started Bondi, if you would start Bondi now, knowing the effort that it took to do.
I thought, you know what, produce some great products, find a gap in the market, connect with people through marketing, be able to sell it, recurring, replicate the formula. I like Bondi from a business as well, because not only was I passionate regarding our brand mission and values and really telling that Australian story and bring the Australian glow to the world, I was passionate by that. But also from a business, I loved the repetition of it. I love just replicating a formula. And I thought, and that's what Warren Buffett talks about Coca-Cola a lot. He loves Coca-Cola because all you're doing is replicating the formula. Yes, you have product peripheralization. You might have different formats of that product, but the formula is very same. Same with Bondi. So I knew that I loved the business model. What I didn't know is how expensive it is. So you're right. We had to remortgage my house. Blair sold his business. And we had to raise money from banks who are unwilling to give to us based on not much, no sales. So we had to look at overdrafts. So we had to put some certain equity up to do that. So the cost of that in the first few months, well, only just purchasing the inventory, but also launching within Priceline, one of the biggest pharmacies in Australia. And just to get that news and confirmation of launching in Priceline was a huge achievement, and it felt so good. But the next day we realised, based on the contract, how expensive it's going to be to work with them.
Do you mind quickly walking us through what that process looked like to actually pitch a product to Priceline before it technically existed?
We had sample products. I think the most important thing about a founder and the founder's strength is their ability to articulate their passion, their customer value proposition, and why they're going to not only create more customers for the category, but why they're going to create customers for the retailer. I look back on that presentation, and we, at the time, Blair and I thought the first phase of our business, and this is where we need to be aligned, the first phase of our business is we want to be lean. We want to be a lean business. So to be a lean business, what do we have to outsource? So we decided we want to go with a distributor, which is really important for us in terms of being lean. So not employing our own sales staff, operational staff, owning our own warehouses. We want to outsource it. So part of that, I jumped on the phone and started phoning distributors. And I was cold calling, getting some referrals, but really just cold calling. And then we phoned one company called Frostland. And I was calling them actually for a referral of another company in Melbourne, which we're about to appoint. And Craig Stewart, who was a mentor for me for a number of years for Bondi, he was a sales manager for Frostland. And I was speaking about Bondi. And he's going, so what are you doing? I said, I've got this brand. It's called Bondi Sands. We're launching products. We're going to present it to Priceline. We think it's going to be the next big thing. Saying all these things founders do with a lot of confidence. And he goes, Bondi Sands, that's a great name. He said, I like what you're talking about. How about you come up to Sydney and present your brand, your products to myself, the owner of the company, Yuri, and a couple other people in their team. And I said, okay. So I said, Blair, we've got this meeting in Sydney. And anyways, we jumped on a plane and went out to Punch Bowl in Sydney, which is where their warehouse and business was. And we presented to the team. And they just loved our positioning. They were seeing what we're trying to do in terms of self-tan. We also talked a lot about marketing, which I'll get to in a second, but really talked from a positioning point of view how we're going to launch this brand. What we didn't have the experience in was retailing, and we needed someone to help us with that. So part of that is how do we work with a distributor who will then buy our product, look after storing it, and then selling it to retailers across the country. And part of that is helping us present as well to retailers. So our first meeting was with Priceline, where we worked on a presentation in terms of brand positioning, how we're going to grow their category, why we think they're missing customers, why we think this category is going to be exciting. And we presented to their executive team. I still remember the meeting. We were very nervous. I remember Amanda, who was the sales manager for Frostland, and how picture perfect she was before she went into the meeting, how polished she was. I was thinking, geez, this is next level. Yeah, we're presenting to executives of Priceline, our brand, and but they loved it straight away, and they really loved our focus on the product. And what I haven't touched on, which is crucial, is innovation. I think when we look at innovation, it's really about how you make a significant impact on a product or a vehicle or a method. And this particular example for us was our product, and we believe it was very innovative. And the reason why, with getting technical on self-tan, we actually had a different dye structure, which was very similar to professional spray tan. And we put that within a bottle, and we made it $20. That was very innovative. I know it sounds simple, but it was very innovative at the time. And we spent months with the chemist to try to do that. And they understood it from a technical point of view, Priceline. They loved the product as well. And they gave us the opportunity of 400 stores, 3 products. As I said, the branding wasn't great, but it gave us the opportunity. And that first week was so exciting, but it quickly went sour from there in the first couple of months.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about that, but I do just want to quickly ask you, do you think that for someone launching a product or a business now, specifically in this space, is the market a lot more saturated than 10 years ago? And do you think it's harder to pitch a business idea such as yours, similar category, to potentially a retailer, pharmacy, grocery? Do you think that's harder today than it was 10 years ago?
No. People ask this question a lot. I think yes, there's times where probably timing does help. And I think back in when solariums were banned in Australia, the right decision. It really did help the category in self-tan. People are more sun conscious. Those political decisions or socioeconomic times can help categories. But competition's always going to exist. I think it's your ability to innovate and be different. And innovation is not having a patent or doing something completely different. It's about taking a good idea and making it better. And that could be a marketing method. Yes, it could be a product, but it could be the way you sell it. It could be your sales funnels, the way you go to market. I think there's always an opportunity to be different within the market. And differentiation is key, and your ability to get behind that is going to be critical. But your strategic focus on differentiation is the most important thing. And I think some people dilute that a bit, but you've got to make sure that prioritization, like differentiation, is key.
Okay, so let's talk about the grand old launch of Bondi Sands. How did that go down?
Well, the launch, as I said, was just we were on cloud nine, absolute cloud nine. We launched in a price line, got this big PO in. So we thought the revenue was going to come in. We believe the cost model was challenging, but we could work it out. We were quickly learning manufacturing with our 3PLs, so 3PMs, understanding logistics, trying to understand sales. And this is what your podcast is all about. It's about being curious. And I was on the phone with Craig and multiple stakeholders. I was obsessed trying to get information from people. Understanding trade terms of retailers, understanding agencies in marketing, understanding how do we actually grow better from a innovation point of view, our third-party manufacturers. How do we scale more effectively? So very early on, Blair and I are obsessed with finding more information. That's really critical as a founder, is that you need to make sure that you do engage these stakeholders and start to learn from them very quickly. So we're on cloud nine. Blair and I thought, you know what, wouldn't it be great to celebrate that with a quick trip away? Probably not the right time to do it, but we did it. And we went to America, and we went to our favourite spot at the time, which was West Hollywood, the Mondrian. Had some great memories there. And I remember this day so vividly. We were in the Sky Bar down there by the pool, relaxing, soaking up the Hollywood sun rays. And all of a sudden, we're looking at our phones and these emails are popping in. And at this time, we're launched and we're seeing some sales from Priceline. We got scanned data, which is what the store data is in terms of sales. And we'll see that people are buying our product. We'll go, first of all, we're thankful that people are buying our product. But also, we started seeing these emails coming in that people were not happy with our product.
Oh, no.
And some of the subject lines was green, or this is not the right die structure, or warning. And I was going, oh my God, what's going on? I thought
anything worse than you want at a launch and for a tanning company? Green.
To see green. And I think one was Kermit the Frog. I was like, Blair, I don't know if we're being scammed or what's going on here, but we've got these emails flooding in. And I remember, look, at the time it was probably like 20, but still, it was a lot. And we realized we had a problem. We realized that we had a quality issue. And this is the problem when you move quick. And when you move quick with speed and you want things at a certain timeline and pushing the boundaries, things can go wrong. And unfortunately, we pushed our chemists in a direction where we probably didn't do the right R&D stability. We had a chemical a ingredient within our formula that wasn't stable. And unfortunately, if it's not stable, it can break down quite quickly. So we saw these issues come in. We thought, geez, we've got to get the front foot here. And I think that's the most important thing when you face a bit of a disaster. You've got to get in the front foot and you've got to be really clear on what the issue is, engage the right stakeholders in the right order of pattern. And for us was find the source of what's actually happened, was really from a R&D chemist point of view, get the information from our third-party manufacturer, understand the severity of the issue, how many products we think. And at the time, we believed we had 25,000 products in the market that would be impacted. We believed that we had 5,000 of those products in our warehouse. We had 20,000 products on the market in stores. We're not sure how many were sold, but we knew we had to recall it pretty quickly. So imagine launching a brand and you have to call up one of the biggest pharmacy groups in Australia and say, look, thanks for taking our brand and giving us a chance. Two founders, two guys that think they know what they're doing in self-tan. But you know what? We have to take those products back. So it was tough. So we flew back, as I said, called the meeting. We directly spoke to the key people in Priceline. I think that honesty, that quick communication was critical. Yes, they were disappointed, but they also respected the way we went about it. We recorded it. It cost us a ton of money. Yes, a bit of brand damage as well. I think the pleasing thing for that was, yes, the dye structure turned people green, but when they took it off, it was the right colour. So there was a bit of okay with it, but ultimately it shouldn't be had any green in terms of the colour guide. But it was very interesting to see that the next batch, people were asking, where's the green gone? I sort of wanted it. That's strange. Anyway, so
like
we quickly tried to recover from that. But yeah, that was a big obstacle and a stress we didn't want. But again, all those things help you learn in business and dealing with stakeholders.
It's also really reassuring, I think, for people listening who are in a similar space that failures are going to happen, and it really is about how you adapt quickly. And that is probably one of the most fundamental things in business, because things go wrong all the time, and it's about your speed and how you react that actually keeps a business thriving.
Absolutely. And also leading with optimism. And I think that's really critical. And I'll talk about it with my executive team a lot, is that our peers and colleagues, our stakeholders look to us for confidence and optimism. And now there's going to be challenges. There's going to be issues. But as leaders, which is tiring, you make sure you find a pathway. And I think even though that was a challenge, I think we're confident to turn it around with Priceline. We're confident with our distributor to build up trust. And we doubled down on that, and we ensure that will never happen again. And it hasn't. In self-tanning, which has been really pleasing in the last 10 years.
And it's interesting you bring up leadership, because when you and I first started dating was during COVID. And so I witnessed you on a lot of your meetings, being on Zoom and overhearing you and how you speak to your staff. And what the first thing I noticed was how much of an incredible leader you actually are, the way you create enthusiasm and excitement within your company, the way you inspire, the way you encourage people to bring their own innovation and curiosity into the workplace. And I think that is one of the key skills of a successful founder and CEO is leadership. And obviously we touched on that at the start. And I am curious to know, how much of that do you think is truly innate, and how much can someone teach themselves in that space? Because leadership is not easy, and managing people is not easy. And I think there would be a lot of people listening who find themselves in a position where they have to lead and manage people, and maybe don't feel like they've got the confidence or the skill set to do so. So how do you feel that kind of grew and adapted over your career?
I think I was fortunate, and I encourage people in management, leadership, dealing with people, just working with people in teams, is just put yourself in those situations. And I think that's really important. I was very fortunate to work with really strong leaders and be in a lot of team projects. But I always also reinforce to people that you can become a leader over time. Even if you don't think you're a leader today, I think building that development does occur. And if you surround yourself with the right people, if you throw yourself in those situations, your leadership style will come out. I do think there's an expectation, though, in terms of organisations to build a culture of leadership across the group. And I always say that leadership is not a title in Bondi, it's an action. And that's something that's really strong for me. And I encourage all our staff to be leaders. And that's what I always say, that the CEO title gets thrown around a lot in our company. I pass it to other people from the business because I want them to be the chief energy officer. I want them to bring their leadership to the company and really encourage that across the group. It doesn't matter if you're a customer service coordinator to executive in finance or marketing. We believe you're a leader of our group. We want to encourage that. And I think an organisation has a responsibility to do that and not define people by titles, not define people by departments, but I think all people with an organisation has leadership style and traits. It's about getting that out.
It's time to take a moment for today's sponsor, which is no other than Bondi Sands. I have always been an avid user and promoter of Bondi products, as those of you who've been following me for a while would know. I'm always incredibly impressed with the innovation they continue to present, so I wanted to share with you their newest products, which I love. If you're looking to enhance your complexion with a natural-looking, everyday glow, then the world's #1 self-tan brand has you covered. Its new self-tanning range, Technocolor, is now available for face and body. Technocolor Self-Tanning Face Serum has been clinically curated to provide you with a tailored tanning result. There are 4 shades to suit varied skin tones. I'm shade Emerald, but I recommend jumping online and doing the skin quiz to find your best match. What makes me even more obsessed with this range is that it features a blemish control complex to help prevent breakouts and blemishes. I have blemish-prone skin, so this is a huge win. Its dermochromatic colour technology uses active ingredients, colour enhancers, and hydration, including ingredients like chamomile and vitamin C. Technocolor Face has a shade for every skin tone and literally leaves your skin glowing. For results as unique as you are, try Technocolor Self-Tanning Face Serum. Available at bondisands.com or check the website for your nearest retailer. So what would be some tangible examples of, something that you might suggest to an employee of how they can improve their leadership skills? Would you send them off to do a course or to do some kind of training? Are there any amazing books you've read? What do you think are some of the key takeaways there?
Definitely. Look, I have a passion for development. One thing I did bring to Bondi quite early, even though we had 4 or 5 staff, I was always brought a bit of a corporate flavour to the business. The right areas of corporate. And I believe an important part of that was professional development. Jackie Bradler, our CPO, Chief People Officer, I worked with her for 15 years through RECV. I poached her when I started Bondi. I worked more closely with her than anyone in the organisation, building the company and building our staffing model. And one thing we focused on wasn't just defining at an absolute high quality level job descriptions, KPIs, role clarity. I think that's fundamentally so important. I don't respect organisations to make people clear, and we spend a lot of time on that in Bondi. But also, just as important is professional development. And I like to think as a private company, we do a lot in that area. If anything, quite aligned to public companies. We spend a percentage of our HR budget towards training development, whether it's internal, external courses. We've got people sent to Harvard to do short courses. We have people to Melbourne Uni to do major university degrees, all funded by Bondi Sands. I think that's a critical part of our learning. And part of that also is we get staff in what's called the Bondi Star program, which is about getting people in special projects within our teams and learning from different people and from different fields. And we see these Bondi Stars rise across the company, and hopefully over time they reach their full potential, what they want to achieve, and they succeed in terms of their development and career. But I think those sort of programs we've had, Bondi Star, Bondi Lead, as well as a leadership program we've devised, that's been critical for Jackie and I. And I think, yes, we're a startup. Yes, we're a private company. But I do believe our HR approach is just as good as a public company. And that's really been the standout for why Bondi has been successful is our people. Yes, we produce good products. Yes, we've got a good vision. But your people is fundamental. And to encourage them to do the best they can to reach their potential is something I'm really proud of, and I know Jack is really proud of as well.
The culture you have created at Bondi is truly admirable. It is such an enjoyable workplace, and I think that's what shows the proof is in the pudding, that some of your first hires, including Jackie, which was almost a decade ago, your key leaders and some of your first key hires are still with you today. That is amazing, and a pretty big handful of them too. So I think that's, to be honest, one of the biggest reasons for Bondi's success, because you've created this team that is so passionate about working for Bondi, but also for working for you and Blair.
It's just been an amazing part of this journey, and I sort of pinch myself that our founding members, where it's Alex Peake, who is unfortunately just recently, and it's very emotional for me, is leaving Bondi after 8 years to the company, our first employee. She was interviewed for a marketing role. I remember her coming into our very small office, and she came in with a PR box and I still remember it. And she was saying that this is how she present our brand to media, and how she should talk about our brand, and her passion and enthusiasm for our brand at that stage where we're just a small little company. And she came from marketing manager all the way up to our CMO. She built a team of 50 marketers across the world. I travelled with her across the world. We spent time in the UK, America, and we hired other founding members in Jacob, who was my CFO, now he's in operations, Claire Pico, our head of digital. We had Jordan, head of sales, all in Jackie, HR. We had all these people for so long in our company, still with us, a lot of them, and for the next chapter. But it was just remarkable that we worked together. I think that's really important when you're recruiting. And it's not sustainable, but what I did was I was in every interview for a number of years. And I used to pride myself on being there, not just in terms of the behavioural side, but more about getting to know someone. And I think that was one of my skill sets, was understanding the profile we wanted, understand the behaviours we wanted, and for me to really understand they're the right people for our company. Hence why I spent a lot of time overseas and building the teams there, because I wanted to replicate a culture I thought was important for us. It's not sustainable. And I remember people who even in the sales process for Bondi used to talk about it. I said, Shaun, how do you think that's sustainable, recruiting everyone? I said, we know what, that's probably one of our ingredients to success, was that we put the effort towards that. And my executives, I still encourage them to make sure they're really hands-on interviewing, because you're building, that's one of the most important decisions you're going to make is when you do a hire. And but very unfortunate to hire people of integrity. And that's crucial for us. It's a brand value of our company, it's a team value, and all our leaders have strong integrity. And also what's really important for us is what we call the Bondi Spark. And that is our secret ingredient, and that is our growth mindset, the joy we bring to work, the energy we bring to work, the energy we bring to anything we do. It's tiring to be a leader. And it's tiring to be a leader, in particular at Bondi Sands. I tell people, I'll be very honest with them. I said, Bondi is not a company for anyone, for everyone. It really isn't. It's a high-paced environment. You're going to be tired being a leader here. We're going to work together. We're very customer-focused, but it's not for everyone. Some people might not want that environment, but once you get the culture right, you're going to be consistent with it. And we believe the consistency is right for Bondi for success. That's also important to realise over time that you need to adjust certain things. And I think for me, as a leader, I had to adjust certain things in terms of my leadership style. I was very fixated on growth, but the way I was articulating it was probably not realistic. So how do I have to go about that in terms of making sure people engage to our vision of growth, but how do you take them on that journey better and not be fixated in terms of getting to that result in a certain way, but working together. So I got that feedback that some of my growth objectives weren't realistic, and how we're going to break that down was going to be important. So it's important to be reflecting on what you're trying to achieve as a leader and how you adjust in terms of the certain period of growth you're in.
Well, I want to touch on growth, because the growth that you had at Bondi was remarkable, and you mentioned about traveling and spending a lot of time overseas, and I don't think a lot of people understand the reality of what that actually looked like for you for majority of Bondi Sands life, and the commitment that it took for you to grow Bondi and to get that culture established in multiple cities around the world. So how did you manage to execute such an incredible growth plan so strongly and so efficiently, even from the early days?
Sorry, don't mind me. I spilled water everywhere.
That's okay. I told you he's clumsy at the start.
Growth. It's a fascinating word, isn't it, growth? And obviously in business, you look at it a lot. And I think, as I mentioned before, the simple thing of growth, everyone looks at output, so sales and new products and new markets, and that's all well and good, but I always look at the inputs to get there, and I think we really focus on that. For us, I like to find growth as a Bondi growth blueprint, and I think some of the corporate things I've brought to Bondi has been long-term planning, and the job of a leader is to articulate what growth could be and should be, based on the vision of the company, how you're achieving your mission statement as a business. And if you look at our mission statement to bring the Australian glow to the world, how do you break that down to ensure you're doing that every single day? So for us to bring the Australian glow to the world with our products, we need to ensure we penetrate markets. And part of that was ensure we expand very early. And I always remember in the early days when we launched within Australia, we became quite successful. We built to a 0 to 20 million company within 2 years in revenue, so quite quick. And then we believed, okay, for us to go to a certain new revenue model and to achieve more sales and to bring the Australian glow to the world, we have to go internationally quite quickly. But all the feedback was, well, you got to make sure you really settle in the Australian market and understand the business more before you go overseas. And Blair and I looked at each other and said, you know what, nah, stuff that. Let's go overseas. So like any entrepreneurs, you jump on a plane, you go to Cosmoprof, which is the biggest beauty trade show in the world in Vegas. Very fortunate, again, luck, to meet someone who was a distributor in the UK, Stephen Short. Loved the Bondi positioning, got it straight away. Loved the branding. It said, this will work in the UK. So what are you doing in America? Let's bring it to the UK first. I said, gotcha, I agree. And we agree. So we struck up a relationship very quickly. We did a deal over drinks, I think. We signed a contract within a week. And probably took more than a week. But we launched it in the UK within 3 to 6 months. So to do that though, that's all, well, it sounds easy, but you have to live in the market. Blair and I lived in the UK for months to understand Superdrug and Boots, the two biggest pharmacy groups in the UK. Worked out, okay, is this distributor, what are they strong at? What aren't they strong at? How do we build a team around them to help our distributor win? And also to ensure that we achieve the growth objectives we set out to achieve. But at a macro level, I've always tried to be very transparent with our team in growth, and I've always devised 3 to 5 year plans. And if I look at it from our first phase, which was 5 years of growth, it was all about our customer, our consumer. And all we talked about in our company internally was that we want to produce the best self-tanning products in the world that were innovative, ideally world-first products, had a marketing model that was different. And that time it was influencer marketing, great content, paid social media, be digital leaders, and expand very quickly, be accessible. That's all we focused on for the first 5 years. And I tried to get everyone in the business speaking that language. How do we focus on our customer by these vehicles? Great marketing, in particular digital, innovative products, be accessible. So that's our whole team got around that. And the results occurred. The second phase of growth, next 5 years, we talked about the customer. So that's a retailer. And we decided as a group for us to go to the next level from 70 million to 200 million. How are we going to define that? And the biggest thing for us was to ensure we had direct access to our retailers. So that was to remove our distributors, which was a very challenging time for us in our core markets, to go direct, sell directly to our retailers, which increases our gross revenue, our gross profit, but also increases your fixed cost base. So you have to build local teams. You got extra costs in terms of warehousing, 3PLs, but that business model ensured we had huge growth because we own the relationship to our retailer. We had no middlemen, and we could grow at a certain scaling level. So, answer your question, growth is about defining it, getting people behind it. Your leaders clearly understand it. I'm reading a book, and I read some of these CEO books, and I talk to you about it, and you know this guy because I quote him a lot, is Bob Iger from Disney, the CEO of Disney Group, who's actually just come back to Disney after COVID, but he was a CEO of Disney for a number of years, and he's just come back the last couple of years. He talks about, as does Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, he talks about it a lot, as does Indra Nooyi, the former CEO of PepsiCo. They all talk about strategic priorities. What they say is you shouldn't have more than 3 to 5 growth initiatives over a 3 to 5 year plan. You shouldn't. If you do, you got too much going on. So what did Bob Iger do when he took over Disney back in 2012, I think it was? He said to the organisation, that the biggest 3 strategic growth priorities we have for the next 10 years is this. We want to be the best content branded company in the world with the best creative people. We want to diversify our revenue through streaming, and we want to make sure we become more of a global brand, which is quite surprising. I would have thought Disney was a global brand, but what he thought was they didn't penetrate Asia, so he wanted Disney World or Disneyland there, and he wanted to penetrate that market better. So what did he do? He acquired Marvel. He acquired Lucasfilm, Star Wars. They became more of a global business. So they all talk about making sure they're very clear to your business, what are your strategic priorities to grow? So for us over time, we said, we've got this self-tanning range, which we're becoming number 1 in the world. And we're about to launch in America back in 2019 to really disrupt that market. But why don't we produce a new category in SPF? Let's really focus on this sun-conscious, own the sun, and have not just safe color in self-tan, but also UV protection. So how can we become a brand that encompasses the Australian lifestyle? So we launched our SPF range back in 2018, which is the fastest growing range in Australia in SPF and also the UK. And we're entering the market with SPF next year in the States, which is a huge focus with Bondi. Also, as you know, our new owner, Kao, as a group. But that's one of their strategic focuses, is really to win skin in that area in the years to come.
It's truly amazing. But speaking about growth, because we see so often businesses grow too quickly and that's their downfall, whether it's cash flow issues or not being able to keep up with supply and demand. So I think as inspiring as it is to hear, what are your practical suggestions for a business owner that does want to scale and grow quickly?
You're spot on. You got to be very careful about growth and growing too quickly. And the issue of my leadership was that I always wanted to grow. I never reflected on some of the achievements we had. I just wanted to look at the next thing. And the problem with that is if you do grow too quickly, some things will break down. And unfortunately, it could be quality in terms of execution. It could be your financial support, or it's cash flow, your balance sheet to support your business, but also the culture of your group. Like, I was very mindful that my leadership style and our growth modeling was burning out some of our staff. And I was mindful of that. And you'd be very mindful as a founder, because founders are like that. They're like, you know what, get up, passion, enthusiasm to grow, to be better, look for the next big thing, but you're going to take people on that journey. I was very mindful of that. So yes, you got to define growth. You got to make sure you can support it from a culture of the organisation, the right resources, whether it's staffing or capital. I think the biggest thing that I've learned and the biggest stress I hear from founders is cash flow.
Yeah.
It is the biggest stressor in any company. And to be honest with you, not just startup companies, some of the biggest retailers in the world still manage their cash flow very well. And they're the best in the world. They have payment terms that could be 60, 90 days. They do that for a reason, because big business needs to manage their cash flow. So managing your cash flow and capital is critical. And you need to ensure you've got a skill set to do that, or you get support in that area to really define that, where it's through working capital understanding. How do you actually have the right capital to support your next stage of growth? And I think what's really important is forecasting that. And I was very fortunate to work with really strong people internally, including Jacob and Sarah Sorensen now from who we got across from Asahi, who's a fantastic financial leader, to really understand what's needed for the next stage of growth. And we need to make sure that our banks, our key stakeholders, knew what we required to ensure we continue to grow. But I see so many founders make mistakes in that area just because they don't either have the right skill set themselves, or they're not putting enough focus on it in terms of making sure they get the support they need. Because it can catch up to you very quickly if you don't understand the parameters of cash flow.
So you mentioned Coca-Cola earlier and Disney before. What would be 3 of your all-time favourite brands or companies, and why?
Very good question. I think when I look at brands and especially global brands, I'm just fascinated how they've got this infrastructure and ecosystem to be so consistent. And I think when I look at those brands, I just admire them. And one of those brands is Apple. I just admire that brand in so many different areas. It's such a, obviously, I think it's the biggest market cap in the world now, over $1 trillion. So financially, it's the leader. They've obviously innovated so much. Obviously, the founder with Steve Jobs, and now Tim Cook as the CEO, but continue to grow, diversify their product offering, very consistent the way they show up. Yes, they think global as a brand, but they act local as well in terms of they localize their marketing. They continue to innovate. I think the companies that big though, they'll be mindful how big they are. I am a little bit mindful of what governments will look at those companies in the future. But as a brand, they're just incredible at what they've done, and also the value they have offered consumers is just is unbelievable. So definitely Apple. From another brand that I admire from a lifestyle point of view, just because we're both passionate by it in terms of health and fitness, is Nike. I think it's just an amazing brand over so many years. And again, reading Shoe Dog from the founder as well, the book, and seeing his story and how he sold runners back in the 70s, I think it was, and how that brand built from just a running shoe to a general lifestyle shoe to just an admired product and brand across the world, and diversify how they have as well. And also to include people like Michael Jordan and have these ranges across their mitt, and how they've actually entered new sports and the way they use celebrities. And they're really the first influencer marketers, really, to me, how they actually went about it. And without social media, how big some of their superstars were was just incredible. And the way I looked at sponsorship and celebrity endorsement. So definitely that field. And look, I have to say Bondi Sands.
Good, I'm glad you said that.
And I think it's any start. Like, I look at brands like our size and some of the brands with even of Australia who are founder-led and overseas, who I respect it because I know how hard it is. I think entrepreneurs, I respect them so much because I define entrepreneurship as achieving something with limited resources and the perseverance to do that. Yes, everyone's got this idea. I think a lot of people have an idea and they have an idea how to create value through a product or service, but what they probably lack a little bit is how the ability to execute that with limited resource. And that's what great entrepreneurs do. They can execute with limited resources. And I always admire people in my space and beauty because I know how competitive it is in dealing with the big multinationals and trying to compete with space and dealing with multiple retailers who are huge across the world, and to try to navigate your way through those challenges and connect with your customers and create value but still be profitable and grow is extremely hard in our industry. So I really admire people and entrepreneurs who can do that.
Well, focusing on big business, Michael Jordan for Nike. What about the iconic bathroom photo of Kylie Jenner for Bondi Sands, which still circulates today? How did that one come about?
Yeah, and look, it was another huge moment for the business and huge moment for our marketing team, and Alex was a huge driver of that. Like anything, when you're looking at entering a market, you got a strategy to enter a market or to engage a retailer, you got to think of, okay, how can I disrupt? And on Bondi, we always try to come back to that. How can we disrupt this part of the business? And what we did know is that we're getting some really good success in the UK. Australia was going from strength to strength. We're getting significant market share, as I mentioned, across some of our key retailers in the UK. Our last stop was America as a core market, the biggest market in the world, probably the most competitive, the most costly. But we had some real strong wins with Boots, and Boots just got purchased by Walgreens Alliance, which is a big pharmacy group in America. And we knew that we had a bit of an in because we're doing so well on Boots. So we got a meeting with the head buyer of Walgreens in America. Again, at that time, it's okay, we've got a meeting, it's just great. We're going to present this presentation, we'll tell them how well we're doing in the UK and Australia, but is that enough? What else can we do to ensure we go in that meeting and they think we mean business? We mean that we're going to support them as a retailer, we're going to bring a new customer to their door, we're going to grow their category, and we're going to champion them. And that's what's really important when you speak to retailers. It's not about you. And if you stop, and I think I say that to founders, don't go in there speaking about how good your brand is. You got to go in there and say, how's our brand going to create value for your customers? And how we're going to bring a new customer to your door. That's what retailers want to know. Everyone thinks their brand is great. But it's your ability to say, I'm going to bring a new customer to your door, or your current customer is going to buy more products with you based on our strategy. And that's what retailers love to hear. And for us, we thought, yeah, we can tell a good story. We can tell about Generation Z, how we're targeting them. We're bringing this millennial customer in door. Our social media strategy is working really well. But geez, can we do something a bit different? How can we disrupt it before the meeting? So I thought, you know what? Let's go after the biggest influencer in the world, in Kylie Jenner. Had no idea how to get to her. But we thought, you know what? Let's try and connect with her.
Hairy audacious goals, as you always say. I like that one.
A bag, a big hairy audacious goal. Yeah, we love our bag goals. And we engaged a PR contact in LA. We actually heard, I don't know if it's a rumor or it's true, we still don't know, that she's actually used our product before, but we don't know if that's true or not. We never verified that, but ultimately,
it's true, guys. You heard it here first.
But we got some feedback that she was interested. So that's all we needed. And we're hoping to get the post done before the meeting. Unfortunately, we didn't, but we told them, Walgreens, that we're going to have this post coming. We didn't necessarily sign, so we're hoping that it was going to be true. And they thought, wow, that's amazing. And we eventually got her signed, and it was probably the biggest, at the time, invoice we've ever seen in terms of marketing expense. Close to $300,000 for a singular post, which not only blew my mind, but we believed it was worth it. And I still remember the time when that post went live. We were in the UK actually, and we all got up at 1:30 a.m. UK time to wait for the post. And like anything, you're sort of waiting, and we were nervous, and all of a sudden it was 1:32, 1:35, 1:40, going, hang on, what's going on here? Is she going to post or not? We're all like sweating. And then all of a sudden she posted, and it was a really good post. And you always get a little bit mindful of big celebrities because you hope you've done the right thing in terms of relationship with them. You want to give them empowerment to do, as you know, as a content producer, you don't want to tell them what to do, but you want to make sure it's aligned to your brand. And for us, it's such a big expanse that we wanted a really impactful post. I'm really happy with what Kylie delivered. It was a really strong post of her. At the time, that was really in, the selfie, not really in now, but back then it was. And she had the post there in terms of the product branding. And it was really strong, went viral. And what was really good about the post, every publication picked it up, which I think is really important in terms of earned media value. We always look at influencer marketing, not just in terms of the engagement from a social media point of view, where it's organic or paid, but also the earned media value on top of that. So how many people have actually picked up on it? So Daily Mail, The Mirror, news.com, whatever it may be, can they republish it and we get more media engagement from it? And to be honest with you, so many publications picked that up, and it was amazing for us. We launched into Walgreens that year. We got a 70% market share within that retail the first year. L'Oreal went from 50 to 20. It was incredible for us, and we really understood our niche. And I think over time, the challenge for every business is to continue to find that niche and making sure you really are owning that, where it's marketing your customer and not trying to be something for everyone. And we always provide that feedback. And Kylie was one of those moments where we found that niche. It was great for us, and we had some great wins from that post.
You guys have really dominated in the social media and influencer space. I think that's been part of some really big growth for you over the years. So how has your social media strategy changed and evolved with the growth and evolution of social media over the last decade?
So Blair and I had the self-awareness pretty quickly we're no good at social media. We started doing some posts and it was like terrible. So we realized, hang on, we understood back in 2012, even with Facebook and when Instagram launched in 2014, I think it was, we knew pretty quickly that this is going to be a vehicle. I always say marketing's never changed. Like marketing hasn't changed from 500 years ago. It's really about how do you encourage someone within your community to talk about your product in a positive way. That referral marketing is the most powerful form of marketing. So digital marketing is exactly the same. How do you encourage a group in a community to talk about your brand in a positive way and create great content? And that's what every brand's focus is or should be. And how you can do that through a number of different strategies. So for us, it was saying, well, we've got great products. We believe we've got the great products. We want people to talk about it positively, tell our story, align to our brand strategy. And we adopted influencer marketing and paid social. What we did very quickly, though, which I think was a very good move for us, not for everyone, but for us, is we internalized that quickly. We didn't outsource it. So we employed Molly, who was our social media manager, very early. And we then had Claire jump on board from a digital paid point of view. And then we built the team out in influencer marketing and paid social and content creation from there. But we never went to agency to do that for us. Now, have we used agencies since? Absolutely. Tactically, we use influencer agencies or paid social media agencies when we need them. But we've internalized it. We've kept the IP in our business. We believe it's stronger for us in terms of relationships as well. We've built a community of influencers who really engage the brand. And I think that's been really beneficial for us. But over that time, there's been just changes in terms of the way influencer marketing looks like, from content, from static posts to reels and Instagram, from posts in terms of education to aspiration to storytelling, to the platforms that have come on from Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok now, Pinterest. All these platforms have been really Snapchat. All these platforms have been critical for us. I think you have to be very careful, coming back to that strategic priority, is making sure you're not everything for everyone. And for us, we've actually really just concentrated on a couple of platforms and try to put all our effort on those. And where it's capital, money or resources, and making sure we really try to win in those platforms. But social media has been such an important part of our brand storytelling, our engagement and brand awareness. I think it's been great for indie brand startups as well. I think traditional marketing has always been a barrier to entry for brands. It's been very costly. Like you can't afford to do a TV advertising or a radio campaign, or it may be. But now you can actually get your voice out in an effective way through a really cool social media strategy or influencer engagement strategy. And I think that's given brands a chance. And I think that's great. I think it's great for the ecosystem. It's great for competition. And I think it's really important for every brand to be heard in some certain way, which is important for value proposition.
So fascinating. So I am a little conscious of time. I want to quickly touch on high performance mindset. You've had to have an incredible mindset over the last 10 years, an incredible amount of resilience, especially last year with the sale, which we'll touch on a second. But I always think it's really interesting to know about someone's daily routine and how they set up to have that mindset to get them through every day and ultimately through these big challenges in business. So what does the average day on a plate look like for Shaun Wilson, aside from waking up next to me?
Yeah, and you know this very well. I think my daily routine is perfect for me, not necessarily for everyone else, but I think it's finding that for you is critical. And I know myself that I'm a better operator in the morning. So I like to get up early. I like to train at some sort of form of cardio or strength and start my day early. Try to always get to the office, ideally the first person. My day starts early just for meetings, and I do believe that my focus is better in the morning and my engagement's better and I'm a better leader. And I try to put everything challenging and difficult and I encourage my leaders to do it as well, early in the morning. And I say that to them because you don't want to think about that the whole day. You want to make sure, okay, I've got an issue that I need to address, or I've got this conflict with a staff member I need to address, or I've got this retailer that's a real pain in the ass, but I need to address this issue with them. Don't put that meeting at 3 o'clock. Try to put it at 9 a.m. because you'll procrastinate on it and you'll think about it and it'll ruin your day. So I always encourage myself to do the same thing. Sometimes people don't appreciate that. I'm calling meetings at 7:30, 8 o'clock. But it's always worked well for me in terms of the way I've looked at it professionally.
Maybe you should add in what time you go to bed then.
Yes.
If you're getting up
and
so
then,
early.
as you know, Tessie, that in the afternoon I start to unwind a little bit and I start falling in a heap. And I do like to have an early dinner. Me and you slightly early, about 5:30, 6 o'clock we can eat dinner.
Let's just say you have significantly changed my daily routine. I'm a completely different person to who I was 4 years ago.
Yeah, it could be very early like grandparents. And then, I like to get to bed 7:30 to 8:30 sometimes. But you sometimes push, you have a second wind, which is unbelievable because I think sometimes you're tiring, but as soon as we get to bed, you got a second wind and you want to talk about 4 million things, which is great.
I feel like every female can relate to this. I don't know what it is, but at 8 p.m. I'm just like ready to go.
Yeah, ready to go.
I'm like telling you about my childhood and all kinds of stuff.
But yeah, so generally that's my daily routine. But I think it's just finding the routine that suits you and being consistent with that. I think consistency is quite important, but also understanding, like even when I started Bondi, I had no routine. Like I was working early, so I was getting up at night. I was worried about currency exchange rates. I was worried about marketing launch. You're putting in the hours, and I think you have to. I know there's always a story about a founder or an entrepreneur saying that, you know what, I did this for $5,000 out of a basement. I didn't put many hours to it. I said this great idea. Maybe it's a 1 in 1 million people can do that. But to be honest with you, most entrepreneurs I know work tirelessly. And the more hours you put in, the more hours you'll get out of it. And I think we'll build up success. But initially in Bondi, I had no routine. I was just working to build it to a level where I could afford to recruit, to build a company. And I'm fortunate enough now to have such a fantastic leadership team, a workforce that are committed to our growth strategy, that I can have a routine that is great for my time as still a senior executive at Bondi, but also support our company's goals as well.
And so last year, very excitingly, you were acquired by Kao. That was an incredibly tough process and definitely one that I was completely ignorant to what selling a business, especially if your scale, actually looks like. And I think, a lot of early day startups and founders might go into their business planning with a very clear 5-year exit plan or whatever it may be. But the reality of selling a business is not that easy. It is not a walk in the park. And it was an incredible test for you. And I think it was also, to some degree, an incredible test for our relationship. So can you elaborate to what the reality of selling a business actually looks like?
First and foremost is having a wonderful partner, I think, is the most important thing. And for you to put up with me at that time and support me and to understand some of the stresses I had and just to be there and say the right things, provide the right support, ask the right questions, calm me down, be that sounding board was just critical. So I think you'd be really lucky and fortunate to have a close network like that. I had it in you. And also my family. I was very fortunate to also have a couple of people on my team who are aware of it. Unfortunately, when you're going through a sales process, just through the size of it, not for every acquisition, but you're generally under very strict NDAs. So you can't talk about it to anyone, whether it's through your team or through any stakeholder. And you don't want to, because a sales process can be anything. It might not occur. You might not be the right fit for them, or you might not be the right fit for you. So you need to make sure you go in there, understand it's a very confidential process. I think the challenge for myself as a CEO, founder, is running the business as well as selling it, which you feel like you're really misleading your team, which really hurt me. I felt like without telling them that what was occurring, it really hurt me as a leader, but I couldn't. So I found it quite hard from that point of view, is not being honest to a number of people within the business, but also running the business to achieve and continue to grow and succeed. And then also on the side, not on the side because it's taking so much time, but to have a sales process. And a sales process, again, all different sizes at different levels, but we were dealing with multinational companies. And multinational companies have teams of, Kao's got 33,000 staff, and some of these companies have got more than that who we're speaking to. So when you're in due diligence calls, it's quite funny actually. We've got a team of 130 at Bondi. It might be a legal or financial DD call, and I might be there with one other person. They got 20, and they were like senior executives drilling you. It feels like you're getting interviewed, and like you're sort of defending your company on decision making, why you did this and why you did that. Like it's just a unbelievable process to go through, and I learned a lot. To be honest, I learned a lot about business. I learned a lot about how they look at companies. I think what I did very well, and I come back to my mum. I had the vision to a degree to understand, okay, we need to ensure we get the right team in this. And I got the right people around me very early from an advisory point of view. Very fortunate to appoint Citigroup, and we had through a relationship we knew, really great people who helped us with that path. And also good advisors in terms of legal and finance on our business and team. And that was really important. You need good people who can help you with that process. And yes, it costs a lot of money. It's not cheap to sell your business. No. But to be honest with you, for what we were trying to achieve, it was really good decision making. We got the right people in our group. I didn't realize the amount of work involved in it. It was just unbelievable. And also the stress of it, because ultimately, as I said, you don't know exactly what the outcome's going to be. You're very nervous about selling, and you never know if you've had the right decision or not in certain areas. But I believe that with Kao as our new owner, partner, who are so passionate by winning in the skin, passionate in the categories we play in, a fantastic team, fantastic people. I've been a pleasure to speak to all the executives, including the CEOs come out from Japan, but also to deal with the executives with America. They're incredibly passionate about growing our business, to keep our brand ethos. They understand the power of it. I believe, I'm really confident that we'll go to a new level. But by saying that, it was very emotional for me as well. As you know, Tessie, that time was really emotional for me. We were building our home as well. We were stressed. I was really stressed about selling the business. You didn't know this, but I was planning to propose to you as well.
Can we just set that record straight that you proposed 3 days after you had that signed contract to sell Bondi? I have no idea how you orchestrated that during the most stressful time of your life. Full admiration to you. I know.
As you know, you can never plan when it's going to be signed. I thought it would be signed maybe if we were going to sell it months before, but it got dragged on, and I wasn't going to delay proposing to you, and I wanted to make sure we did that in the perfect way. So it was just one of those things all happened at the same time, and I think overall, as you know, I think when I get stressed, I become a bit more introverted, and but the ability to articulate some of your stresses and with you was really important for me. But I got very emotional when I signed it. It was very surreal. So once we finally finished the GDD and we came to the decision that Kao was perfect for us, and Kao was really happy with us as well, that we'll sign together. It was 1:15 a.m. You were there, Mum and Dad were there in our place.
Yeah, I remember that. I was sick in my trackies. And we were like wanting to get champagne and celebrate, and I was there like coughing my lungs out.
It was very surreal because I was over Zoom, and Karen Frank, the president of Kao, sort of cheers me. I cheered her, and then, but probably didn't get real for me then, because that was a bit surreal. Then we went away for a couple of weeks, and They had to come back and actually send an email saying to my lawyers, saying that I now passed the Bondi Sands over to Kao. And me writing an email, I remember sitting down with you, I think it was over 7 o'clock at night one night, and that's when I started tearing up when I had to send that email. That I knew that I let go of Bondi to the new owners. But as I said, I think it was the right decision for us, the right decision for our brand, the right decision for our staff. The opportunities our staff have now in terms of next stage of growth is incredible. An incredible company to lead it, and it's a privilege for me to continue to lead it as well as we integrate our businesses in the next stage of growth.
And we should probably add in for all your customers, I think it's important to note what a lot of people don't realise that is you're still active CEO or technically president.
Yeah.
And so you're extremely hands-on still, working full-time for Bondi Sands. And I think that's the concern when a business is acquired, is that it's going to lose its expectations or customer expectations and company ethos. So how are you planning to maintain the core values of Bondi while it's been bought out by a bigger company?
I think these big companies, they're obviously bigger for a reason. They understand that brand equity is everything. Why they bought Bondi, yes, you got the functional attributes of products, but they bought Bondi for the brand. That's where the IP is. That's the value of your business. So the brand ethos of us in terms of integrity, the Australian glow, our spark, our brand pillars is why they bought it. They bought us based on our brand values. They bought us based on our brand mission. That's why they bought our company. It's the identity of who we are. So why the hell would anyone want to change that? Only improve it. So that's what's really important for us and for them on our next stage of growth. And we're really looking forward to improving that as well. But we've got so much to achieve with Bondi still, and it's a fascinating time for our company because we've got this opportunity now to grow in the right way, in the right areas, penetrate more markets, introduce more innovation, really tell our brand story and add value for our customers. And I think the categories we play in are so exciting. I really love the category of UV, self-tan. We've got some innovation coming out that's world first. So it's a really exciting time for the company.
Okay, so lastly, do you have one piece of advice for someone listening who finds themselves in your shoes where you were 10 years ago?
Yes. Just one piece of advice?
If you've got one.
The one piece of advice I have, which I talk a lot about still today, it's actually a brand value of our company, is confidence and compounding confidence. I call it compounding confidence because I think there's a responsibility of leaders to ensure they instill confidence within a group. But I think on a personal level, is having the confidence in yourself is critical. And that belief in your idea, your belief that you can grow an idea, your belief that you're going to be challenged, but you're confident to navigate that is everything as an entrepreneur. So your confidence for me is the biggest thing. And I think if you just grab that and own that and ensure that you surround yourself by people like that as well, you're always going to go through business where people tell you you can't do something. Blair and I have had the uncanny ability to ignore that. Sometimes maybe they've been right, but ultimately I think if you believe something's right and you think it's right for your customers, you believe it's right for your business, you don't need to tell anyone else about that. It's your belief, and that's the most important thing. So I think the confidence is everything. As a group as today, we want to ensure we're trying to compound confidence across our organisation and ensure that people feel confident that they've got the growth mindset that will add innovation and value to our customers. And it doesn't matter if it's day one or day 20 years, if you can instill that in yourself and your group, I know you'll have a successful business. But it's ensuring that it starts with you.
Honestly, babe, thank you so much for joining me because I find you so incredibly inspiring to listen to, and I absolutely love the story of Bondi Sands, and I hope that everyone listening feels just as inspired as I do. As you know, I like to wrap up my episodes with a quick verbal entry in the Tess Talks diary. So this is one moment for you to leave an important note, message or quote that you want to leave behind. So whether it's a short piece of advice or a lesson you've learned or just an insight you think is worth sharing, what would you like to leave behind?
I think I was just really touching on that. I think compounding confidence and leading of optimism is something I'm going to leave in your journal. And again, it's been an absolute privilege and honour to be your inaugural guest, Tessie. And I've really loved our chats. But I think I want to leave that within your journal, is how do we compound confidence and do that by leading with optimism. I think that's really important for your listeners to start with.
Thanks so much, Shawnee.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. If you loved the episode, please subscribe, rate and review. It honestly means so much and helps to keep these conversations going. And I'd love to connect with you. You can message me on Instagram or TikTok, and I've left all the details from the episode in the show notes below. I'll see you next week.